Before we begin, I invite you to take a deep breath and gently exhale all the weight of the day. This moment is yours. A moment to pause, to let go, and simply be. You're about to enter a space where ancient wisdom meets quiet stillness. A place where stories are more than just words. They are doorways. Doorways to peace, to presence, to profound transformation. These are not ordinary stories. They are Zen stories. Short, simple, yet timeless tales passed down for centuries. Each one holds a whisper of truth that bypasses the noise of everyday life and speaks directly to your soul. Let these stories calm your thoughts. Let them stretch your mind beyond what it once believed. Let them open your heart to a way of living that is lighter, freer, and more aware. You are not here by accident. This is your time, a time to reconnect with something deeper, something quieter, something true. As you listen, don't try to analyze or figure anything out. Simply allow. Let each word flow through you like wind through bamboo. And know this: what you are about to hear may not just relax you, it may awaken you. Welcome to the journey. Welcome to the most powerful Zen stories ever told. Now, let's begin. Take a breath. Let the world grow quiet around you, and step with me now into the story. Long ago, in a quiet corner of the earth, where the mountains whispered and the rivers sang, there lay a tiny village, untouched by time. No maps led there, no roads hurried toward it. But those who reached it always said the same thing. It felt like I had returned to a place I never knew I missed. On the edge of that village was a forest. Not an ordinary one, but a forest of 1,000 bamboo trees. Some said it was magical, others said it listened. But everyone agreed, the forest changed you. And one day, a man named Kai arrived. Kai was a seeker, though he didn't know what he was seeking anymore. He had lived fast, climbed high, earned much, but something still whispered quietly inside him. This isn't it. He wasn't lost, but he also wasn't found. So he followed a feeling, not a map, and it led him to the forest. Before entering, an old villager handed him a cup of tea and said gently, "The bamboo will not answer your questions, but it may help you forget the ones that never mattered." Kai stepped into the forest, and the forest received him. No fanfare, no signs, just the soft rustle of tall green stalks swaying in the breeze. The air was still but alive, filled with birdsong and the rhythmic tapping of bamboo knocking gently against one another. He walked in silence, and for a while, his thoughts raced. Voices from his past, to-do lists, fears of the future. But the forest didn't hurry him, and slowly, without effort, the noise inside him began to soften. The trees said nothing, but somehow they taught him something. He paused beneath a tall stalk, bent low in the wind, and wondered aloud, "Why don't you break?" And the forest, in its own way, answered, "I am bamboo. I bend so I do not break. I do not resist the wind. I move with it. And when the storm passes, I rise again." Kai closed his eyes and breathed that in. Then he whispered to himself, almost like a vow, "I will no longer resist life. I will bend. I will flow. I will trust." That was his first lesson. Later, he met an old monk sitting by a stream. The monk looked up, smiled, and said nothing. Kai sat beside him for a long while. No questions, no answers, just a stillness. And in that stillness, something shifted inside him. The monk finally spoke, his voice like wind over water. When the mind grows quiet, the heart begins to speak. And in that moment, Kai realized something. He'd spent so much of life doing, chasing, proving. He had forgotten how to be, and so he sat with that, then softly said, I will stop rushing to be somewhere else. I will be here, in this breath, in this moment, because here is enough. That was his second lesson. In the days that followed, time lost its shape. Kai stopped counting hours and began measuring presence. He woke with the sun, slept with the stars, ate when hungry, listened when moved. One morning, he watched a young bamboo shoot push through the earth. It didn't force itself. It didn't compete. It just grew, quietly, steadily, with no desire for applause. And he thought to himself, growth doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful transformations happen silently, beneath the surface. He smiled and said aloud, I will be patient with my journey. Even when I cannot see the results, I will trust the roots are growing. That was his third lesson. One evening, Kai stumbled upon a woman tending to a tiny tea garden. She invited him to sit and poured him a cup with slow, intentional movements. No rush, no chatter, just presence. He watched her in awe, how even the way she placed the teacup was a kind of art. She looked at him and said, peace is not something you find. It's something you practice. In how you walk, in how you eat, in how you serve tea. Kai looked down at the cup in his hand, steam rising gently into the cool dusk air, and he whispered, I will bring presence into the smallest things, because peace lives in the details. That was his fourth lesson. The forest changed him, not all at once, but breath by breath. One night, he lay beneath the sky, so wide it made his worries feel small. The wind moved through the bamboo like a lullaby, and a thought came to him, not loud, not urgent, just a soft knowing. I've spent most of my life chasing a version of myself I thought I needed to become. But maybe who I am in stillness is already enough. He exhaled and said aloud, I will stop trying to become. I will allow myself to simply be. That was his fifth lesson. Eventually, the time came to leave. Kai didn't want to, but the forest had given him what he didn't know he was missing. Not answers, but peace. Not noise, but clarity. Not escape, but coming home. As he stepped out of the forest and back into the world, something had changed. Not the world. Him. He still faced storms, but he bent and did not break. He still walked among chaos, but carried the stillness of the bamboo inside him. People noticed. They couldn't explain it, but when Kai entered a room, it felt calmer. When he spoke, people listened deeper, and when he was silent, no one felt the need to fill the gap. They would often ask, where did you learn to live like this? And Kai would only smile and say, I listened to the trees. Dear listener, you have now walked through that forest with Kai, and maybe, just maybe, something in you has softened too. Maybe you're remembering how to breathe again. Maybe you're remembering what matters. So I ask you now, gently, can you bend instead of break? Can you pause instead of rush? Can you be instead of become? Let this be your invitation to live slower, deeper, truer, to bring presence into your tea, your breath, your days. Let this be the beginning of your own journey within, because the forest is not a place, it is a way of being, and it lives inside you, always. Welcome home. The Mountain, the Monk, and the Mirror, a Zen story for enlightenment, inner peace, and mindful living. Take a breath Let your shoulders fall. Let this story carry you into a deeper stillness, into a higher understanding. There once was a mountain said to be so high that it touched the sky, and so quiet that you could hear your own soul speak. They called it Mount Satori, the mountain of awakening, but few ever dared to climb it, for it was not just steep, it was sacred. At the base of the mountain lay a small, almost invisible monastery, made of stone and silence. Only one monk remained, an old man who had long stopped telling others his name. He was simply called the Mirror Monk. It was said that anyone who truly wanted to understand themselves would, sooner or later, find their way to him. And that is where this story begins, with a man named Ren. Ren was not a seeker of wisdom. He was a seeker of escape, tired, anxious, successful on the outside, but lost on the inside. He was the kind of person who had done everything right, and yet nothing felt right anymore. The louder his world became, the more he longed for something quieter, something real. And so one day, without telling anyone, he left. No map, no phone, just a bag, a notebook, and a strange instinct to walk toward the mountains. 3 days later, blistered and hungry, Ren reached the monastery. The monk, barefoot and smiling, offered him tea without a word. Ren drank, then asked, "Are you the Mirror Monk?" The monk only nodded. Ren said, "I'm not here to find peace. I'm here to find myself." The monk pointed toward the path winding up the mountain. "You'll find your reflection at the summit," he said, "but only if you leave behind what clouds the glass." And so began Ren's climb. Day 1. The the first part of the mountain, was steep, but manageable. Ren moved quickly, eager to succeed, as he always had. But by midday, he was exhausted. His backpack, full of things he thought he needed, began to feel heavier with every step. He reached a clearing where a small sign was nailed to a tree. It read, "What you carry may be more than what you need." Ren sighed and dropped to the ground. He unpacked his bag. 3 books he hadn't read, 2 jackets, a bottle of wine, a laptop, and then, slowly, he began to remove them. He left behind what was not essential, and as he stood up lighter, he whispered to himself, "Letting go is not losing. Letting go is making space." Day 2, the voices. The second day, the air grew thinner and the climb steeper. But it wasn't the path that troubled Ren. It was his thoughts. Voices from the past. "You're not good enough. You're too much. You'll never change." They echoed with each step, and for hours, he battled them in silence. Then, as dusk fell, he came upon a cave. On the walls were carvings, thousands of small marks, and in the center, a wooden plaque. "These are the thoughts of those who walked before you. They echo until they are listened to." Ren sat for a long time, and then he spoke aloud, one by one, the voices in his mind, not to fight them, but to hear them. Each time he gave a voice space, it softened. Some even vanished. That night, under a starlit sky, he said quietly, "I do not have to believe every thought that visits me. I can choose which ones to keep." Day 3. The stranger. On the 3rd day, Ren met a stranger, an old woman with wild eyes and a crooked walking stick. She was walking down the mountain. They sat by a stream and shared fruit. She asked, "Why are you climbing?" He said, "To find who I really am." She laughed, not cruelly, but knowingly. Then she said, "You do not climb the mountain to find yourself. You climb to drop who you are not." She stood and handed him a polished stone. "Hold this when you forget. It will remind you that reflection only appears on still water." And then she disappeared into the forest. Ren looked into the stone and saw his face. Tired, curious, human. He whispered, "Who I am is what remains after the masks fall away." Day 4. The storm. On the 4th day, the sky changed. Dark clouds rolled in. Winds howled. Rain poured. Ren found a ledge to shelter beneath, but he was cold, soaked, and scared. He screamed into the wind, "Why is this so hard?" The mountain did not answer. Instead, lightning lit up the valley, revealing a small inscription carved into the stone. "The storm does not come to punish. It comes to reveal what is real." Ren sat through the night, shivering, crying, but also breathing, and when the storm passed, he did not feel broken. He felt clear, like something inside him had been washed clean. As the sun rose, he said softly, "Not every pain is a punishment. Some pain is a teacher in disguise." Day 4. The mirror. At last, on the 5th day, Ren reached the summit. It was not grand or dramatic, just a small, flat space with a single object at its center, a large mirror, aged and silent. He approached it, expecting revelation, but all he saw was himself. He frowned. "That's it?" And then the wind stilled. The clouds parted, and he heard a voice, not from outside, but from within. "This is what you came for, to see yourself without the noise, without the striving, without the story." He stared into the mirror, and for the first time in his life, he saw not who he was trying to be, but who he was, still, present, enough. He smiled, not a proud smile, a peaceful one. And then he spoke, not to the mirror, but to himself. "You were never lost. You were just distracted." He sat beside the mirror until nightfall. He had nothing left to prove, nothing left to fix, only a life left to live, with awareness, with stillness, with truth. The descent, Ren returned to the monastery the next morning. The monk was waiting. He didn't speak. He simply placed a hand on Ren's shoulder and nodded. And Ren, for once, had no words either. But he carried with him 5 truths, not learned in books, but carved into his soul. Letting go is not loss. It is making space. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Your true self exists beneath the masks. Storms do not break you. They reveal your strength. Peace was never somewhere else. It was in your stillness all along. So now, dear listener, you have climbed the mountain too. You've walked with Ren. You've met the mirror monk. And maybe, just maybe, you've remembered something you once forgot. That you are not broken, you are becoming. That you don't need more, you need less. That the deepest truths are the quietest ones. Now, take a breath, let it go, and let the peace you found at this summit stay with you as you return not to the world as it was, but to the world with new eyes. Welcome back. Welcome home. The Path of Still Waters, a Zen story to relax, enlighten, and transform your life. Chapter 1, The Departure. Long ago, in a land where the sun rose behind the tallest mountains and rivers flowed like silk ribbons across the earth, there lived a man named Taro. Taro was a weaver by trade. He made garments of extraordinary beauty, but his soul had begun to fray. Each day he awoke, his chest was tight. Each night he lay in bed, wondering if this life, this pace, this constant pressure was all there was. He wasn't unhappy, but he wasn't free. One morning, after finishing a robe that felt hollow despite its brilliance, Taro walked outside, looked toward the horizon, and whispered, "There has to be something more." And so, with only a walking stick, a cloth bag, and a quiet ache inside his chest, he began to walk. He did not know where he was going, only that he had to go. Lesson 1. True journeys begin not on roads, but in moments of quiet honesty. Chapter 2. The River Temple. After many days of walking, Taro found a small temple beside a flowing river. An old monk, serene and still as the stones around him, invited Taro to sit. "Why are you traveling?" the monk asked. Taro replied, "To find peace." The monk smiled and said, "Then stop running and sit." They sat in silence for hours. No words, just the river. And in that silence, something began to unravel inside Taro. A tension that had lived in his shoulders for years began to melt. The monk finally said, "Most people think they must move to find peace, but peace is what remains when the movement ends." Lesson 2. Stillness is not the absence of life. Stillness is life undistracted. Chapter 3. The Mirror in the Mist. Days later, Taro climbed a hill shrouded in mist. At the top stood a mirror, old and spotted. He looked into it and saw not his reflection, but every role he had ever played: son, worker, friend, achiever, pleaser. One by one, they faded, and beneath them all, he saw a face he didn't recognize, quiet, present, deep, and he realized he had not come here to become someone new, but to remember who he had always been. Lesson 3. The truest self is not built, it is revealed. Chapter 4. The Garden of Questions. Taro wandered into a valley filled with stones, each carved with a single question. What are you avoiding? What are you clinging to? What would you do if you were not afraid? He sat among the stones for 3 days. He answered none, but each night he slept deeper. By the 3rd day, he laughed gently and said aloud, "Not all questions must be answered. Some just need to be asked." Lesson 4. Wisdom grows not from answers, but from the courage to sit with the unknown. Chapter 5. The Woman and the Bowl. Taro came upon a small hut where a woman served tea to travelers. Her hands were wrinkled, her eyes ageless. She placed a cracked clay bowl before him. It wobbled. He frowned. She smiled. "Drink," she said. He drank. It was the best tea he had ever tasted. She said, "Most people wait for perfect conditions to enjoy life, but life is the tea, not the bowl." Lesson 5. Wait not for perfection. Joy lives in the now. the cracked, the simple. Chapter 6. The Cave of Echoes. In the heart of the forest, Taro found a cave where every word spoken echoed endlessly. He shouted, "I am not enough." The cave replied, "Not enough, not enough." He whispered, "I am whole." The cave replied, "Whole, whole." He learned that the world echoes what we speak, both aloud and in silence. Lesson 6. Your words shape your world. Speak gently, within and without. Chapter 7. The Lake of Letting Go. Taro reached a vast lake. A sign read, "To pass, you must let go." He dropped his bag. He removed his shoes. He stood naked, not in body, but in spirit. And then he waded in. The water was cold, then warm, then nothing at all. And as he reached the other side, he wept, not from sadness, but from lightness. Lesson 7. Letting go is not losing, it is returning. Chapter 8. The Return. Taro returned to his village. He was not wealthier, not more famous, not more successful, but he was free. He wove again, but this time with presence. He spoke again, but this time with silence between words. He lived again, but this time with joy in each moment. Final lesson. Peace is not found at the end of the road. It is woven into the steps. You, dear listener, have walked with Taro. You have seen the mirror, drunk from the bowl, listened to the echo, sat with the questions, let go at the lake, and now you have returned. Let this story become your stillness. Let it slow your breath. Let it soften your heart. Let it awaken the sage within. You do not need to change the world to find peace. You need only to change how you walk through it. So walk slowly, walk gently, and remember, the way is always within. Title: The Wind Path. Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, you begin a journey that does not take you across the world, but gently inward. A journey told in the rhythm of breath and the wisdom of stillness. This is the story of the wind path, a tale of quiet courage, deep awareness, and inner renewal. It is here to guide you home, not to a place, but to your truest self. Let go of your day. Let go of needing to understand, and simply listen. Let this story carry you like a breeze through the mountains of the soul. Chapter 1. The Call to Drift. In the village of Kyo, where lanterns floated every autumn down the river, lived a young woman named Suri. Suri was known for her precision. Every dish she cooked, every note she played on the flute, every letter she wrote, perfect. But inside her lived a quiet ache. Perfection had become her prison. One day, after yet another sleepless night, she stood by the river and whispered, "What would happen if I stopped trying so hard?" As if in answer, a gust of wind rustled through the reeds, and in that moment, she made a decision. She packed lightly, took her flute, left a note, and followed the wind. Lesson 1. Sometimes the soul whispers not for more effort, but for release. Chapter 2. The Hermit and the fireflies deep into the forest, Suri met an old man sitting on a mossy stone, watching fireflies with absolute stillness. She asked, "What are you doing?" He replied, "Noticing." She sat, at first, impatiently, but slowly, the light of the fireflies began to entrance her. Each blink, a small miracle. He said, "Most people miss the beauty because they chase what's next." They watched in silence until the fireflies disappeared with the dawn. Lesson 2. Presence reveals magic that speed will never see. Chapter 3. The Bamboo Bridge. At the edge of a cliff stood a narrow bridge of bamboo. Beneath it, a chasm. No railings, just wind. Suri hesitated. A sign read, "Cross only when you can trust the wind more than your fear." She closed her eyes, listened to the breeze, took one step, then another, and halfway across, she began to laugh. Lesson 3. Fear fades when you step through it with awareness, not resistance. Chapter 4. The Flute and the Stone. On a hilltop, Suri played her flute. The sound echoed over the valley. An old woman approached, holding a smooth stone. "Play again," she said. Suri did. The woman placed the stone on the earth and said, "This sound will echo here for generations." Suri asked, "Is that true?" The woman nodded. Every true expression leaves an imprint. Lesson 4. Your presence, your art, your truth, all echo beyond what you can see. Chapter 5. The Garden of No Name. Suri came upon a garden. No signs, no fences, no names for the flowers. A gardener knelt in silence. She asked, "What is this place?" He said, "Where names are dropped, life is seen more clearly." He handed her a seed. "Plant it with intention, but don't label it. Let it show you who it becomes." Lesson 5. Identity is not what we name ourselves, but how we unfold. Chapter 6. The Wind Path. One dusk, Suri found a narrow trail at the edge of the forest. It wasn't on any map. A sign read, "This is the wind path. Follow it without plans, and it will take you where you belong." She followed. The path took her to forgotten temple, to waterfalls that sang, to elders who told her truths in riddles. She walked for weeks. She began to forget time, and then she realized she was becoming the wind. Lesson 6. Freedom is not found in knowing where you're going. It is found in trusting how you're going. Chapter 7. The Cloud Ceremony. High in the mountains, Suri joined monks who practiced the cloud ceremony, a ritual of silence, tea, and cloud watching. Each monk watched the sky for hours. "What are you watching for?" Suri whispered. "Nothing," a monk smiled. "We are practicing acceptance." That evening, she watched the sky turn pink, then blue, then dark. No thoughts, just the sky. Lesson 7. Peace comes not from fixing the sky, but learning to witness its changes. Chapter 8. The Wind Returns. One morning, the wind shifted. Suri stood on a cliff and felt it at her back. She closed her eyes and listened, and it said, "Return now, but return different." She walked back to her village. She still played her flute, still cooked, still wrote. But now she moved like wind through bamboo, free light, awake. People noticed. They asked her secret. She only smiled and said, I followed the wind, and it led me to myself. Final lesson. The path outside leads inward, and the inward path returns you to the world as a blessing. Dear listener, you too have walked the wind path. You too have crossed the bridge, sat with the fireflies, listened to the flute, and maybe, like Suri, you feel a little lighter now, a little clearer. Let this be your new rhythm. Slow, present, free. Let go of needing to be perfect. Let go of rushing. Let go of needing to know, and simply follow the wind. It will always take you where you truly need to be. Title: The River of Light, a deep Zen story for stillness, awakening, and lasting transformation. Prologue: The Whisper Before the River. Before the world knew words, it knew the sound of water. Before the mind built walls, the heart knew flow. This is the story of Ayu, a boy born of silence and starlight, who one day heard a whisper carried by the river and chose to follow it. Let us begin. Take a deep breath. Let the sound of this story become your current. Let it carry you gently as the river carries a leaf. Chapter 1: The Village of Routine. In the village of Darren, life was safe, predictable, and timed like the morning bell. Ayu lived among farmers, cooks, and storytellers who repeated their tales, always the same way. But Ayu was different. He loved to sit by the river and listen, not to people, to the water. One night, while the village slept, the river spoke, not with words, but with a shimmer of moonlight that seemed to pull Ayu's spirit downstream. Lesson 1: Your true journey begins the moment you stop listening to noise and begin listening to wonder. So Ayu packed a simple bag and followed the moon's path, reflected in the water. Chapter 2: The First Crossing. 3 days later, Ayu reached a broken bridge. Planks were missing, ropes frayed. No one dared cross. A sign read, "You must leave behind what weighs you down." Ayu hesitated. He opened his bag. Books, a keepsake, a worry written in ink. He placed them all down. Then he crossed. Lesson 2: The river does not carry what you refuse to release. Chapter 3: The Boat of Silence. A fisherman offered Ayu a ride downstream, but the boat made no sound. Not a creak, not a splash. Ayu tried to speak. The fisherman raised a hand. This boat moves only in silence. So they drifted. Hours passed. The more Ayu quieted, the faster they moved. Lesson 3: Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the condition for pure movement. Chapter 4: The Island of Echoes. Ayu arrived at an island where everything he said returned louder. "I am afraid," he said. "Afraid," the trees shouted. He sat under a tree and whispered, "I am ready to let go." The island fell silent. Lesson 4: The world amplifies what you carry. Whisper what you wish to grow. Chapter 5: The Lantern Keepers. At dusk, Ayu found lanterns floating down the river. He followed them to a small dock where elders were lighting and releasing them one by one. Each lantern carries a burden, released to light, one said. Ayu wrote his fear on a rice paper scroll, placed it inside a lantern, and watched it drift away. Lesson 5. Letting go is not forgetting. It is blessing the burden and setting it free. Chapter 6. The Bend of Mirrors. Further down, the river curved sharply. Reflections shimmered across the water, revealing not the surface, but memories. Ayu saw himself as a child. He saw every time he doubted, judged, hesitated, but he kept rowing until the reflection changed. He saw a version of himself he had never met, peaceful, grounded. Lesson 6. Reflection is not to judge who you were, but to welcome who you are becoming. Chapter 7. The Night Temple. A storm rolled in. Ayu took shelter in a temple built into the rocks. Candles flickered. Wind howled. A monk sat motionless. The storm is not your enemy, the monk said. It is your resistance that causes suffering. Ayu watched the rain until it no longer frightened him. He bowed to the storm and slept soundly. Lesson 7. The storm teaches surrender, not survival. Chapter 8. The Broken Flute. A child sat by the river, crying over a snapped flute. Ayu offered to help, but the child shook his head. Instead, Ayu sang the melody the child had played. The child smiled. The song never belonged to the flute, Ayu said. It belongs to you. Lesson 8. What is essential can never be broken. Chapter 9. The City of Glass. The river passed through a city of mirrors. People walked fast, looked perfect, but never saw each other. Ayu stood still. He looked deeply at others, and one by one, people paused, met his eyes. Stillness spread like light through glass. Lesson 9. When you truly see another, you awaken them. Chapter 10. The river opens. The river widened, slowed, became calm. Ayu now walked along its banks, carrying no bag, no name, only breath. A woman with hair like silver clouds greeted him. You have reached the river of light. The water glowed. It pulsed with something ancient. She said, drink and remember. He drank and remembered every lesson, every letting go, every silent moment, and also every moment of love. Title: The Whispering Ocean, a transformational Zen journey, written for deep listening, life renewal, and inner awakening. Prologue: where the Ma begins. Before every journey, there is a stillness. Before every answer, there is a question. And before every transformation, there is a whisper. This is the story of Kyle, a traveler who was never looking for peace until the ocean called to him. Now, close your eyes. Let this tale unfold like tides over the shore. Each word is a wave. Each pause is a breath. Let go and float with me. Chapter 1. The Drifted Message. In a small harbor town, where gulls cried and nets hung heavy with fish, lived Kyle, a shipwright who had lost the heart to build. His hands knew craft, but his spirit had gone silent. One morning, while walking the beach at dawn, Kyle found a glass bottle in the sand. Inside, a single message. The ocean remembers who you are. Come. Lesson 1. When the soul is dry, the sea may call to refill it. Chapter 2. The Farewell Wind. Kyle left with no goodbye. He stepped aboard a small sailboat and let the tide decide. For 3 days, the boat drifted. No sails raised, no map, just surrender. He began to dream of places he had never seen. Temples made of coral, stars that blinked like breathing eyes. Lesson 2. You do not always need direction. Sometimes you only need permission to drift. Chapter 3. The Island of the Listening Tree. Land appeared. A green island with one massive tree, its trunk twisted like braided time. Kyle sat beneath it. The wind in the leaves sounded like breathing. A woman approached, wrapped in cloth the color of sea foam. She whispered, "What do you need to let go of before you continue?" He answered, "The need to always know." She smiled and said, "Then listen. The tree will hold your silence." Lesson 3. Before you move forward, lay down what no longer serves your stillness. Chapter 4. The Rainkeeper's Gate. Kyle entered a monsoon coast where it rained without pause. People there wore smiles like clouds, soft, quiet, nourishing. He met the Rainkeeper, a man who had not spoken in 20 years. He only swept the streets, cleaned puddles, and nodded at strangers. One day, Kyle asked him in writing, "Why do you serve in silence?" The Rainkeeper wrote back, "Because rain does not announce its blessings, it just falls." Lesson 4. Real peace doesn't shout, it simply shows up. Chapter 5. The Temple of the Forgotten Names. On a quiet bluff stood a temple without signs. Pilgrims entered one by one and emerged wordless, teary, and light. Inside, Kyle found scrolls filled with names people had carried as identities: hero, failure, lonely, achiever, unseen. A monk handed him a brush and said, "Add yours, then walk out barefoot." Kyle dipped ink, wrote, "Prover," and walked out. The ground was cold, but his feet had never felt more real. Lesson 5. Who you are begins only after who you were no longer controls you. Chapter 6. The Cliff of the Great Silence. Kyle climbed a cliff where wind swallowed every sound. He stood there for a full day, and in the silence, memories returned. His mother's laugh, the night he abandoned his dreams, the sound of wood as it split under his young hands. He wept, and the silence did not judge. Lesson 6. The silence isn't empty. It's a room filled with truths waiting to be heard. Chapter 7. The Ocean of Fireflies. Kyle reached a black sand beach where millions of glowing fireflies floated over the water, moving like breath. He met a child there who simply watched. No grabbing, no chasing. "Do you want to catch one?" Kyle asked. "No," the child replied. "I want to remember what it felt like to want nothing." Lesson 7. Sometimes the most powerful state is wanting nothing at all. Chapter 8. The Sea of Mirrors. Kale entered a cove where the sea was so still it mirrored the sky. He looked in and saw not just his face, but every moment he had doubted his own light. He whispered, "I forgive you," and the sea shimmered. Lesson 8. What we forgive in ourselves becomes peace in the world. Chapter 9. The Storyteller Without a Voice. A village welcomed him next. In its center was a storyteller who had lost his voice. Each night, he gathered people with gestures, drawing stories in sand, in wind, in fire. Kyle learned that stories do not need sound, they need presence. Lesson 9. You are not your words, you are your presence. Chapter 10. The Return Tide. The ocean called again, not to drift, but to return. Kyle stood at the bow of his boat, now stronger, lighter. The stars above him did not feel distant, they felt within. He returned not to the harbor, but to life. He rebuilt. He breathed. He taught others how to listen to the whisper. Final lesson. The greatest return is not to a place, but to a presence you had forgotten was yours. Epilogue. The ocean in you. Dear listener, you have walked Kyle's path. You have drifted. You have let go. You have seen. And now, the ocean is in you. You are not lost. You are becoming. Let this be your new breath. Let this be your new stillness. Let this be your whisper. And let it lead you home. Title: The Mountain of Sky, a soulful Zen journey through silence, seasons, and sacred self-discovery. Prologue: The sound above the clouds. They say high above the clouds. There is a sound only the soul can hear, a frequency not of words, but of remembrance. This is the story of Tao Jin, a scholar who became a pilgrim, who became silence, who became sky. Tonight, you will walk with him, and by the end, perhaps you too will hear the sound above the clouds. Let us begin. Chapter 1. The Scholar's Burnout. Tao Jin once lived surrounded by books and applause. He knew 10 languages, wrote best-selling philosophies, and lectured across distant lands. Yet, he could not sleep. One night, while writing a treatise on peace, his inkpot spilled across the page. He stared at the mess and whispered, "None of this has brought me peace." A knock came. It was his old gardener. She said, "You must climb the mountain of sky. The monks there do not teach. They remember. Lesson 1. Intelligence fills the mind. Remembering empties it, and in emptiness, peace returns." Chapter 2. The First Gate. The Gate of Wind. The mountain trail was steep. At the first gate, a monk stood. He said, "This gate only opens when you stop resisting the wind." Tao Jin asked, "What does that mean?" The monk stepped aside and the wind roared. Tao Jin bowed, took off his heavy coat, and let the wind sting his skin. He smiled. The gate opened. Lesson 2. The wind does not come to harm. It comes to remind you that you are not in control. Chapter 3. The Temple of Cold Hands. Higher up, Tao Jin met a group of monks, breaking ice with bare hands to draw water. He asked, "Doesn't it hurt?" One replied, "Pain is not our teacher. Purpose is." Tao Jin tried. The ice bit him. He almost quit. But a young monk said, "Don't fight the cold. Breathe with it." Tao Jin slowed his breath. The pain became sensation. Then sensation became stillness. Lesson 3. Suffering ends when resistance ends. Chapter 4. The Silence. Inn. That night, Tao Jin stayed in a silent inn. No one spoke. Even laughter was wordless. In the silence, Taojin noticed things he had never noticed. The way steam rose from tea, the rhythm of blinking, the stories in other people's eyes. He found himself smiling more and needing less. Lesson 4. Silence is not the absence of meaning. It is the space in which all meanings are revealed. Chapter 5. The Mirror Pavilion. The next day, he entered a pavilion filled with mirrors of all sizes. A note read, "Look into each until your image disappears." At first, Taojin saw himself everywhere. Then his mind tired. Then he sat, and in the stillness, the reflections faded. Lesson 5. What you call self is just movement. When you stop moving, you return to what's real. Chapter 6. The Seasoned Monks. Further up the mountain lived 4 monks, each representing a season. Spring taught him play. Summer taught him energy. Autumn taught him release. Winter taught him rest. Taojin stayed a week with each. He planted. He danced. He let go. He slept. Lesson 6. You are not one version of yourself. You are seasons in motion. Embrace each one. Chapter 7. The path of empty footsteps. Near the summit, Taojin came upon a stone path with no footprints despite daily use. A monk told him, "Walk with such presence that you leave no weight behind." Taojin walked slower than ever before. He noticed every breeze, every pebble, and indeed the path behind him was undisturbed. Lesson 7. When you walk with full awareness, the world holds you gently. Chapter 8. The Cave of the 10,000 Questions. In a cave near the peak were carvings of 10,000 questions left by pilgrims. Taojin read them one by one over several days. He noticed some repeated. Who am I? Is love real? What happens when I die? At the end of the cave, there was a blank wall. He carved a single word. Here. Lesson 8. You don't have to answer all questions. Some are healed simply by being fully here. Chapter 9. The Sky Chamber. Finally, at the summit, Taojin entered a small chamber open to the sky. He sat for hours, days, weeks. Clouds passed, rain came, sun rose, moon glowed. He thought he would see heaven, but instead, he saw himself, not the self of mirrors, the self of sky, spacious, unclenched, infinite. Lesson 9. Your soul is not the one looking for the sky. It is the sky looking through you. Chapter 10. The Descent. As light, Taojin descended slowly. He greeted each gate, monk, and memory with new eyes. Back in the world, he no longer taught with books. He sat with people in silence. And in silence, they healed. Final lesson. The highest teaching is not speech. It is presence that requires no explanation. Epilogue. You are the mountain. Dear traveler, you have walked with Taojin. You have stood at the gate of wind. You have touched the mirror of seasons. You have become the sky. Now return, not to escape, but to live, to breathe, to be still even in movement. You are not climbing anymore. You are the mountain, and the sky has always been within you. Dear listener, you've journeyed far. You've followed rivers that whispered wisdom, climbed mountains that echoed truth, walked through forests of fireflies, mirrors, stillness, and sky. You've drifted with wind, sat with silence, breathed with ancient trees. You've met sages without words, and children who taught you how to feel again. And now, you are not the same. You may not yet fully see it, but something within you is lighter, more spacious, more open. You've let go of old noise. You've listened deeper than ever before. You've remembered something ancient, something yours. The still place beneath the noise. The quiet self that doesn't chase, perform, or please. So pause here with me, just for a while. Let's breathe together. Inhale deeply. Exhale fully. Once more. Inhale into your heart. Exhale into your life. You have not just listened to stories. You've practiced presence. You've trained your mind to soften. You've taught your nervous system a new rhythm, one of calm, curiosity, and care. And in doing so, you've become the river that flows without force, the mountain that holds without needing, the lantern that glows quietly, not for attention, but from essence. Let this be your turning point, a threshold into a more mindful way of being. From today forward, you are invited to move slower, to speak more truthfully, to love more deeply, to work more wisely, to rest more often, to return again and again to stillness when the world spins too fast, because peace is no longer a destination you seek. It is a place you remember within, and if you ever forget, return to these stories. Let them reawaken what the world may have dimmed. Let them remind you that life is not a race. It is a sacred unfolding. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are becoming, always becoming. So, walk on, wise traveler. Carry this stillness into your conversations. Carry this peace into your family, your work, your art. Carry this light into dark places, not to change the world, but to illuminate it with who you've become. From all the voices, places, and moments you've encountered here, we thank you. We honor your journey, and we celebrate your return, not to who you were, but to who you really are. Breathe, rest, be still, and rise anew. Your path is yours now. Walk it gently. Walk it as light.